Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Bastards of Boston Baseball. We're going to be doing something a little bit different on this show. We usually try to come up with, haters, Red Sox haters, clown takes, whatever, but you've actually all been pretty chill. So you kind of left us with not a lot, but that's okay. You know what? We figured we'd take a look at what's going around the entire Major League Baseball, MLB standings, where they are right now, who your division leaders are, and if we think they're for real or they're just kind of, it's a hot start, not going to last. So, I figure it'd be a nice way to look at what's going on around the league, not just in the American League East, but all the other divisions, and figure out what we feel like is for real and what's not legit. So, I'm your host, Jason Kelly. I'm here with Nick Diamond and Terry Cushman. So, guys, if you're ready to go, do you want to just start with our own division right here in the American League East? Let's start there.
Let's do it.
All right. So on top of the League East right now is the New York Yankees at 15 and 10. Your Boston Red Sox are 2 games behind, 14 and 13, followed by Toronto, Baltimore, and Tampa. So, Nick, how do you feel about New York, the start they've gotten off to, and do you think it's sustainable? Do you think someone else is going to rise up and take them over?
When I was making my predictions early on in spring training, I had the Yankees at the top. That was pre Garrett Cole. That's pre Stan injuries. I slowly moved them down to second place. I think I actually ended up with them in third place. But while watching their team right now, I think it's sustainable just because the AL East is just nowhere near as good as it's been in the past. It used to be the best division in Major League Baseball by far. The Orioles are having a down season, and I think they will bounce back. I don't think they'll bounce back to 95-plus wins like they have in the past. The Red Sox might not be as good as we thought they have or thought they will be. The Rays have a positive run differential, but they're really not that good. I think that ballpark will help them keep that run differential high. They'll have some big blowout games where they score 10, 15 runs out there. And the Blue Jays, they started off hot, but they've been struggling lately. So I think the Yankees are very much run through Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge is hitting, the Yankees will be good. If not, the Yankees will not be as good. But I think their pitching has been good enough to keep them in the games. Max Fried has been phenomenal for them, actually. So that's a pitch the Red Sox have missed out on. But I think the Yankees, I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I think there's still teams that could win the division. Red Sox, the Orioles, they still have a chance. But the Yankees, I think they will sustain this. They'll be a good team. They will finish around 90 wins. So they have a chance to win this division. And I'm actually surprised they're sitting at the top playing as well as they are.
Terry, what do you think of the AL East?
I don't think the Yankees are for real. I still think the Red Sox are the team to beat in the American League East, and that might surprise some people. The Johnny Fontaines in the audience are going to be upset with that take. But I don't know. I just question the sustainability of the pitching. Carlos Rodon is pitching okay right now, but I don't know if that's sustainable. He's not a guy who typically stays healthy. I think Max Fried will pitch very well for the duration of the season. But then after that, you got Carlos Carrasco, Will Warren. Neither one of them are pitching very well at all. And, Garrett Cole's out for the year. Marcus Stroman, I heard a stat that he's pitched 89 innings since last August, and he's given up 51 earned runs. It's just pretty ugly, in New York. So I don't see much help coming. I think their offense is kind of streaky, guys like Bellinger and if Judge gets hurt, that's about as catastrophic as it gets. So the Red Sox have more help coming. Can they fire on all cylinders is the big question, but I don't think the Yankees are for real. In fact, I'll still pick them to miss the playoffs. How's that?
Actually, because I was gonna say I don't think they're for real in terms of winning the division. They might sneak in as a playoff team because they do have Luis Gil. He's going to be back at some point. It's going to be later in the season, but he will be back. They could also make a trade at the deadline. They're the kind of team that they might need it. I don't think they're going to get like a big fish like an Alcantara or something, but they'll pick up some rotation piece that'll just give them enough. And you know, the American League is so putrid; they can probably squeak into even at the second or third wild card. I think they can sneak in. I don't think they're a division winner though. I don't know at this point. Like I'm surprised by Baltimore's start. At the same time, I'm not because my big concern with them was you let Corbin Burns go, and look, we all agree he was going to Arizona regardless. That's just where he wanted to go. But you didn't replace him with anything. You brought in Charlie Morton. Like you didn't do anything. You had no additions to your lineup. You had no additions really to your bullpen. I feel like Baltimore is just banking on, oh, we'll just call up the next prospect and he's going to be the next Colton Cowser or whatever. And they're without Colton Cowser until the All-Star break, it feels like. So, but he'll be back. I feel like Baltimore could be the team that makes the big splash for an Alcantara at the deadline to help bolster that rotation. I'm going to stick with my original pick. I think Baltimore still wins the division. I know they're not looking good right now, but Gunnar Henderson was hurt for all spring training. He's going to pick it up eventually. He's going to get comfortable. We know what Rushman can do. Their rotation is questionable, but I still think they'll make a good trade to bolster that. Their bullpen is very solid. And, you got guys like Jordan Westberg in that lineup. Cedric Mullins is having a really good start to his season. Like, I think Baltimore still has the firepower and the means to not only improve where they are right now, but go out and get outside help and bring in an ace starter to really help them. And I'd love to say that the Red Sox can win the division, but at this point right now, as of this recording, I don't feel that way because I think trade deadline comes around. I don't think Breslow is going to fire the big bullet to go get what he needs. I think Baltimore will. So I think right now this is a very skewed, look at the standings. I think that Baltimore is eventually going to climb their way out. I still think they're the legit team in the AL East. So I think they'll win it. I think Red Sox and Yankees will still be wildcard teams, though. I don't think the Yankees are going anywhere. I think they'll still hang around. I obviously think the Red Sox will be good this year. So those will be two wildcard teams. AL East is going to have a lot of talent coming out of it. But I think Baltimore ultimately wins the division. So we'll move to the AL Central. Maybe a surprise to some, but maybe not to many. The Detroit Tigers are in first place at 15-10, and nipping on their heels, as always, the Cleveland Guardians 14-10, half game out, and then the Kansas City Royals are 3.5, and Twins and White Sox are in the toilet right now. Nick, how do you feel about Detroit, and are you surprised by Minnesota at all? Because I kind of was, but I want your take on it.
With the Tigers, I think they have a good chance of staying at the top of this division. I picked the Royals to win the division. I still think they are a very talented team. They have a superstar in Bobby Witt, and they have the rotation to do it. They're really streaky. They're coming off 6 straight losses, and then they just won 4 straight. So they're kind of getting back to where they were. I think they're 2 games under the Royals. So the Tigers have Tarek Skubal. And, coming into this offense or this season, you kind of thought that was it. Reese Olson has stepped up so far. Jackson Jobe has been looking good. Young guy they have in their starting rotation. Their bullpen's great. Spencer Torkelson's having a great start to this year. Hopefully that's for real, and he sustains that because he was a first overall pick that everyone kind of thought was a bust, and he's finally living up to his potential. Hitting homers, playing first base for him. I know they kind of told everybody Colt Keith was going to play first base, but Spencer Torkelson stepped up to the plate and has been that guy. So they kind of have a position. I know they have some guys hurt. Gleyber Torres is their second baseman or third baseman, wherever they want to put him. But Colt Keith, they got to find places for all these guys to play. I'm going to say the Tigers don't win the division, but they can. I'm going to still take the Royals. And you brought up the Guardians. I personally think the Guardians are the worst out of those top 3. But you never know with them. They always figure out guys who could pitch at the big league level, at a high level. So they're always going to be in it. But talent-wise, just looking at the roster, I picked the Guardians third out of those 3. And with the Twins, I I didn't think they'd be as bad as the White Sox, obviously, but I didn't think they would be a division contender. Am I surprised with how bad they've started? I guess not. I don't think they're going to be a 100-loss team, but I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they'll be above 500 at this point. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about them.
Terry, how about you?
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet here. I didn't pick the Tigers to win the division like Nick. I picked the Royals, but I think the Tigers are for real. They've got the best rotation in the American League in terms of ERA. Four guys below 3. I mean, Jack Flaherty has picked it up from where he left off last year, 2.63 ERA, Skubal 2.83. And this is insane to me, but Flaherty has more strikeouts than Skubal. I wouldn't have predicted that. Reese Olson has the worst ERA at 3.29. I wish we had those problems, but Casey Mize has seemingly figured it out. Former top prospect, hadn't gotten off to a great start to his career, but he's got a 2.22, and Jackson Jobe, their rookie, 2.70. Not a ton of strikeouts from him just yet, although only 20 innings, but so they do have the best rotation. And, I mentioned how Mize was looking like a bust. So is Spencer Torkelson, and he's leading the Detroit Tigers in home runs with 7. He's got an on-base percentage of 3.73. Kerry Carpenter is doing very well from a power standpoint. He's kind of a platoon guy. He's a lefty. Riley Green probably could pick it up a little bit, but he's a high ceiling guy. Gleyber Torres signed, I think, a 1 or 2 year deal. He's hitting 283 right now, being very serviceable. And, they put a lot of eggs into the Alex Bregman basket. And I kind of wonder if Bregman's kind of looking at all the drama in Boston, looks over at Detroit thinking, geez, maybe I should have chose AJ Hinch instead of Alex Cora. I don't know. It's early, so I'm sure there's no regrets yet, but just imagine how good the Tigers would be if they did manage to sign Bregman. And they've got a great farm system, a lot of tradable assets to go get 1 or 2 bats at the deadline. So I see the Tigers as for real and winning the American League Central.
Yeah, I initially picked Kansas City to win the Central. I loved their pitching, and when you have a superstar like Bobby Witt, it's kind of hard to ignore a team like that because he can just drive their whole offense. But you look at Detroit, that rotation, it is the best rotation in the Central. I mean, what Scooball is doing with Reese Olson, Casey Mize, who I think a lot of people forgot about, because he's 28. He was a first round pick in 2018, had some injuries, wasn't quite picking it up. Now he's legit. Like, he's figured it out. He's there. And oh yeah, by the way, Jack Flaherty's there. Their bullpen's pretty solid too. They pick up Tommy Canley to be their closer, and he's been great so far. So they've got a strong bullpen. They've got a great rotation. And I look at their offense, and the word that comes to mind is it's plucky. They don't have a big superstar in the middle of their lineup, but they have a bunch of guys who can just produce runs. Like, Torkelson is not going to be an MVP candidate this year, but he can drive in runs. Riley Green, same thing. He's a good player, not great, but very good, and he can produce runs. They're getting away with Zach McKinstry playing a bulk of their games in the outfield. Like, he's pretty much a platoon player, but they're getting away with it. I think they will have to acquire a bat at the deadline. They've been known to do that. They acquired Mark Kanya last year, so they've been known to do it. They're hoping Javi Baez figures it out. I don't think he will, but they do have a good farm system too. They've got guys who they can call up and can take that spot. Max Clark is a guy who's probably banging on the door, might be ready soon. So I like Detroit. I think Kansas City, I still like them as a team, but what I'm seeing from Detroit, I kind of wish I could change my pick. I think Detroit's going to win that division. And Kansas City might be a wild card, but Kansas City needs more offense. I mean, Detroit does too, but Kansas City is like Bobby Witt and Salvi, and that's it. And Pasquantino, like the rest of their lineup doesn't do anything. So they need a lot of help, for them to compete. So I like what Detroit's doing, and you know what, that division's kind of wide open apart from Chicago and Minnesota, who just I think just I don't know. I think Minnesota overvalued their own talent a little bit and just kind of stood pat in free agency and didn't do much. So that's their own doing. But yeah, I like Detroit. I like what they're doing so far. They've obviously got a good manager behind them. So I think Detroit's going to hang on. I think they will actually win that division. So that's one I miscalculated, I think. But hey, it happens. So with that, we'll move on to the American League West. This one's pretty tight, but not a lot of great teams in it. So the Rangers are on top right now, 14-10. Your Seattle Mariners, who we just saw, are 14-11, half game back. Then it's Houston, the Angels, and the Athletics. The Athletics are in last place. They're 3 games back of the Rangers, who are in first place. So all these teams are pretty closely bunched together. Nick, what do you think? Do you think Texas hangs on to it? Do you think there's a surprise in here?
No, I think Texas hangs on. Texas hasn't even played well. If you look at the run differential, it's negative, and they're still in first place. I think they can run away with this division with the Astros not as good. The Angels, I think, have very overperformed. They're not very good either. The A's, I think, will continue to improve. I think there's a chance they finish near second or third place in this division, but I think at the end of this, the Rangers are too talented to not win this division. I think they might just accidentally win the division, even if they don't play well this year. I think like 86, 87 games gets it done. But yeah, I think the Rangers win this division. I think they win it by 5 to 10 games. Right now, they're not playing well, but by mid-June, July, I think this one might be over.
Terry, what do you think?
I'm not as convinced that the Rangers are for real. Corey Seager is on his annual vacation now. What happened to him? Strained hamstring. Okay.
It's a hamstring every year.
Okay. Yeah, so he's on the injured list. I don't know if I trust their pitching as well. I mean, the Rangers have had a pretty good offense for a while, but is Nathan Eovaldi going to hold up for the duration of the season? Will Jake DeGrom hold up at 30-something years old? Tyler Mahle, well, he's actually off to the best start of anyone. But I don't know. I just question the sustainability of the pitching. I haven't really kept close enough tabs on the Astros yet, but they're a couple games above 500. The team that I picked to win it, which was my upset special, the Oakland A's, are 2 games under 500. They could certainly go on a run. I mean, they were one of the best teams in Major League Baseball in the second half last year, but a big factor for them if they do turn it around will have to be Jeffrey Springs, who's been getting absolutely tuned up. They've got another pitcher, Osvaldo Bido, who was off to a pretty good start, but then he gave up 8 earned in his last outing. So I'm not that familiar with him, admittedly, but if the A's can get an arm, I think they can keep it interesting. And having seen the Mariners this weekend, I mean, they always choke, but they've got a decent foundation there to work with. So maybe if they're sick of losing, they can make a run at it. But I'm not comfortable enough to call a winner, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be the Rangers.
I think I kind of feel the same way. Like, I feel like outside of the Angels, this division could be for the taking between all 4 of the Mariners, Astros, Rangers, and the Athletics. Like, the Athletics have good young talent that are coming up now. Like Tyler Soderstrom is up, he's producing. Um, Lawrence Butler is, a really good player who's starting to make a name for himself. And, the Athletics have the benefit of playing in that Mickey Mouse minor league stadium, which we saw that with the Rays. The Rays nicknamed it the Boombox because you can hit a ton of home runs there. Like the Athletics might go back to being what they were in the 90s when they were good, which is they hit a ton of home runs and they pitch well and they get to, late 80s, high 80s in the wins. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. They've so much young talent there that it could happen. Is it likely? I don't know. It depends on how aggressive those owners and the people in the front office there want to be. My guess is not very. I don't rule out Houston. I kind of hate what's going on with their pitching right now. The fact that Hunter Brown is like your best starter and all the veterans are kind of falling off, and you've got your GM basically saying, "Oh, we'll take calls on anyone." It's kind of a weird situation there. I think Houston eventually is going to drop out. They're competing right now. They're doing okay, but Christian Walker hasn't done anything since he got there. I think they kind of got the wrong first baseman in free agency, quite frankly. So I don't think they're going to hang around. I think this comes down to Texas, the Athletics, or Seattle. And I don't trust Seattle. I agree with Terry. They're chokers. They do the same thing every year. Yeah, we look good for the most part. They don't do anything at the deadline, or they do something stupid at the deadline. They rely on their pitching. The offense falters in the second half, and they end up with 82 wins and they miss the playoffs. It's the Seattle story. So I honestly, I'm going to stick with the Rangers. I think they hang on. I think their pitching gets better. They get healthier. They're going to get John Gray back at some point. They'll probably pick up some bullpen pieces. Who knows? Maybe Kumar or Jack Leiter takes a step forward and really helps them. Their offense is good. They're going to have Jace Young the whole year at third base. Jace. Yeah, he's going to help them a lot. I think offensively, combined with some pitching help, they're going to be good enough. They'll get the division. It's a pretty weak division, so it's not going to take much. But I think the Rangers will hang on to it. Just barely, but they'll hang on.
I'll add one more thing about those two teams. I think what you said is perfect. I think the Rangers are going to win it pretty easily, but I think the top two teams will be the Rangers and then the Athletics. I said before the show, I think the Athletics by the end of the year will have the best offense in the American League. That's just with adding Nick Kurtz, Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, Lawrence Butler, JJ Bleday is a good player too. Jacob Wilson is like another Luis Ariz. He's all contact guy, not much power. He does have 2 homers this year, but he's just the high on base kind of guy, singles hitter. I think offensively that team's going to be very good. But if you want to look at the Rangers, Marcus Semien, who honestly has been a low-key Hall of Famer, if you really think about it, he's been a top 5, top 3 MVP vote getter for like the last 5-6 years. Has been worse than Tristan Casas. Marcus Semien's been worse than Tristan Casas this year. Jock Peterson, who we thought was a great pickup, started the year 0 for 41 or something like that. I think he got his first hit yesterday. So offensively, they've been struggling, and they're 14-10. So I think the Rangers are just too talented. Like you said, John Gray will be back. I think Evaldi's going to be fine. He might miss a few starts in the middle of the year, but I think they have enough with a weaker division around them. The Astros are not as good as they once were. So it's the Rangers, and then I think it's the Athletics. And then once this Rangers team gets old, I think it's the Athletics division to run for a long time. Hopefully they get a stadium out there, and it's their division.
I would love nothing more than for the Athletics to take that division back over. Yeah. Bring it back to the 90s when the Athletics were running the AL West, right? With that, we'll move to the National League. So we'll start with an NL East, which bit of a one-horse race at the moment. The Mets out in front, 18-7 to start the year. They've been red hot. They just crushed the Phillies. The Phillies are in second place, 13-12, 5 games behind. And then you got Miami, the Nationals, and the Atlanta Braves in last place. So, Terry, I'll actually start with you on this one. NL East, I'm not sure how many of us had the Mets actually winning it. Probably not many, but bit of a shock. They got off to a hot start. You're on mute.
Pulled a Charlie there. My bad. So anyway, I'm comfortable enough at this point to say the Mets are for real, and more likely than not, they will win the National League East. I did pick the Phillies, and I think the Phillies are very good, and they're probably going to make the playoffs. But just looking at this Mets team right now, Pete Alonso is hitting 341 with a 440 on base, and he was a guy that I kind of wanted as the winter dragged on. By the time mid-January got here and he didn't really have a huge market, I was hoping the Red Sox might sneak in there. And just think of, I mean, Bregman's been crushing it. So I don't have any complaints about Bregman, but man, just imagine Pete Alonso in this park just murdering that monster. I don't know, but he's off to a hot start. Juan Soto really, I mean, he's not doing terrible, but he hasn't, he's hitting 233 right now with 3 dingers. His on base is 130 points above that. So he's obviously going to figure it out, but I think his presence in the lineup has really made Francisco Lindor elevate his game, and he's having one of his best starts in a long time. And then you flip over to the pitching, it's just they're doing really well. I mean, the Clay Holmes experiment as a starter has worked out pretty well. Tyler McGill, I mean, his 109 ERA, that's gonna probably that'll come back down to earth, but he's off to a good start. David Peterson as well is putting together a good season. He's a guy who's had the potential to do it, and he's finally doing it now. Kodai Senga has been a sneaky good signing from them, and as Nick mentioned in the pre-show, you're going to get Sean Manaea back at some point, and I'm not sure about Montas, but they've got a lot of depth in their pitching, much like the Red Sox do. And the vibe they're giving right now is one, of destiny. I just think that it could be their season. Having said that, I mean, the Phillies could have something to say about it and come roaring back. I wouldn't be shocked. The Atlanta Braves started 0-8, and now they're, I think, only like 4 games above 500. My computer's slow right now. But they're kind of chipping away at that massive deficit. I have it right now. Yeah, they are just 4 games under 500, 10-14. So they've gone 10-6 since that 0-8 start. So that's not bad. Spencer Strider just messed up his hamstring though, so that's kind of a bummer for them. But having said all of that, I think the Mets are for real, despite the fact I took the Phillies.
Nick, what do you think of the NL East?
I agree. I think the Mets are for real. I picked the Phillies to win the division as well. I also had the Mets as the 3rd wild card and in 3rd place in that division. So I think they're definitely capable of winning the division. I think it kind of shows they're building a little pitching lab out there with Peterson coming into his own, making Clay Holmes a very good starter with a lot of swing and miss potential out there. They still have more pitchers coming with Montas and Manaea. So I think I'm going to say they're going to win the division at this moment. You brought up the kind of like the team of destiny. I don't think they're going to win the World Series or anything like that. And I think they'll still have their struggles. I just think the Phillies are getting older and they didn't make – I've been watching a lot of Phillies games and they kind of haven't made as many upgrades to their offense as I think they should have. They've been begging for an outfielder for years and, they're still stuck. They moved since Schwarber and Harper are no longer outfielders. They're kind of – it's Brandon Marsh and Nick Castellanos and then a bunch of nobodies out there. So I think there's a couple holes in that lineup that I don't think they'll be a bad team. I still think they make the playoffs, but the Mets might win the division. And with the Braves, I think they're a little overrated. Spencer Strider can't stay healthy. We don't know what we're going to get from Acuna when he's back. Austin Riley hasn't been good in almost a whole year. Yeah, they're kind of being carried by Marcell Ozuna, and that's not what you want to be carried by. Sean Murphy's hit like 6 homers already, and he started the year on the IL. So I think they'll be a good team. They probably will still make the playoffs, the Braves, but I think they're a little bit overrated. I don't think they're that juggernaut team that we kind of thought they'd become dynasty after their World Series title. And then the other teams in that division, the Marlins, I think they've had a great start to the year, but they're not good. And the Nationals, I think they're a few years away. James Wood is a stud. I'll give him a shout out because I think he's great. But besides that, I think it's a 2-horse race. I think the Braves won't be part of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. So the Marlins and Nationals, the Marlins are so far away. Like they have so much work to do, and they're going to trade Alcantara. I think this trade deadline, or if not, at least this coming winter. They've got some good prospects, but it's going to take a while. The Nationals are closer than people think. I think Mike Rizzo is one of the best GMs in the game. He's going to turn that around pretty quick, but it's not going to be this year. It's going to take a little bit more. I think the Braves sneaky might do a small blow up at the deadline. Not complete. I think they still want to be in there. They want to be in the mix, but like you said, they're being carried by Marcell Ozuna. Why hang on to him? I mean, some stupid team is going to get desperate for a right-handed power bat. We've seen it. On this podcast, we've seen people begging for the Red Sox to trade for Marcell Ozuna. Oh, trade Casas for Ozuna. And that sounds crazy, but there's a team out there that's going to want his bat. I think Atlanta, if they don't gain some traction quick, and, you just said Strider's got a hamstring injury, Chris Sale's going to get hurt too at some point. They're going to get more injuries down the line. Ozzy Albies, what if he gets hurt? What if Austin Riley gets hurt? I think that's a team that they're one more big injury away from being who do you want? Do you want Chris Sale? We'll give you Chris Sale. Who wants him? Do you want Marcell Ozuna? We'll give you him. We'll take a 78 win season just to kind of reset a little bit. So I think Atlanta's going to drop out. I agree. It's between the Mets and the Phillies. I still take the Phillies. I think they've been off to a rough start. Aaron Nola is 0-5 with an ERA near 7 right now. I don't think that's going to last. He's going to figure it out. I don't think there's any way he's just dropped off a cliff. I know Christopher Sanchez got hurt in one of his last starts. It doesn't sound that serious, so he should be okay. Their offense will pick it up. I agree with, I think, Nick, you mentioned it, they didn't address their outfield problem that well. They had a Max Kepler. If you're not good enough to play for the Twins full time, you're probably not that good. So I think Dombrowski is going to, put his foot down, make an acquisition, go get an outfielder at some point, help bolster that lineup. Their bullpen's okay. I think their rotation will straighten itself out. I just don't think, Pete Alonso's not going to keep doing what he's doing. He's not a 300 hitter. He's going to settle back down into the mean. Juan Soto will probably pick it up at some point. And look, Lindor, you don't have to tell me. I picked him to win MVP. So he's doing what he's doing. But Nimmo's off to a bad start. Brett Beatty's been off to a slow start. I don't know. I don't trust that rotation. I think the Mets rotation right now is fool's gold. They've been overperforming. It was a big reason why I picked the Phillies to win the division. I don't like that Mets rotation at all. I really don't. So even if Manaea, when he comes back, okay, fine. I don't think it's good enough. And I just feel like Dombrowski's going to get aggressive. He'll go get the pieces he needs. I think it'll be close, but I think the Phillies still win that division by 2, maybe 3 games. So, but that will be a fun division to watch for sure, because Mets, Phillies, if those are the two, 2 front horses, that's going to be really fun. So another division that could end up being kind of fun is the NL Central. So right now you got the Chicago Cubs out in front at 16-10. The Brewers are in second place at 500, 13-13 at 3 games back. And then you got the Reds, Pirates, and Cardinals taking up the rear. So I think I can honestly say when we did our preseason predictions, this was maybe the hardest division for all of us to pick. So, Nick, I'll start with you on this one. How do you feel about the Cubs being out in front, and are you surprised by that at all?
I thought the Cubs would be above average team. I thought they'd be about an 85-ish win team, but I think they're legit. I think once we watched so far, they've put up a lot of runs. Kyle Tucker's playing like an MVP candidate. Pete Crow Armstrong has really stepped it up this year. They lost Steele for the season, so that might hurt them, but I think they'll go out and do what they need to do at the deadline to stay in it. I think I'll say they're the most talented team in the division at the moment. I still am really high on the Reds and Terry Franconen's influence there. But if I had a bet right now, I'm going to take the Cubs. But I'm still rooting for the Reds to win the division. I'll put it that way.
Terry, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not much different from Nick here. With that start that the Cubs have had and the fact they've beaten primarily, they've had probably one of the toughest schedules in MLB, as Nick pointed out in the pre-show. It's just, it's hard to bet against them. My only concern, I guess, is the pitching. They lost Justin Steele, I think, for the season. I can't remember, was it elbow or shoulder. I want to say it was his elbow. And but man, that offense is just off the charts right now. Kyle Tucker, Seiya Suzuki, Michael Bush is having kind of a breakout year at first base. Pete Crow Armstrong having a great year as well. Just scrolling down a little. Ian Happ is, hitting 268 with a 352 on base. And, there's a lot of extension talk right now with Kyle Tucker. I don't know if he'll do it or just hit free agency. He'll be one of the top free agents this winter. So I think it makes more sense to just test the market. But a lot of people, for some reason, do like playing in Chicago. So I don't really know. And the Reds don't look terrible. I mean, Gavin Lux is having a great start to the season. Only one home run, but he's hitting the ball pretty well. Ellie De La Cruz, Austin Hayes, he's only played 9 games, so I don't know if he's hurt or not, but across the board, his numbers look good. 3 home runs, hitting 361 with a 410 on base. I thought he could have been a sneaky signing for the Red Sox this winter. It wasn't popular in our war room, but yeah. And then you got some guys that are hitting below their potential right now. Spencer Steer, Matt McLean, Hamir Candelario. If those guys can just step it up a little bit, this could be a dangerous team. So, but I'm gonna pivot back to the Cubs. I'm gonna say they're probably more for real. This is the most winnable division in Major League Baseball, and if they're aggressive enough to go get an arm at the deadline, that could seal it for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go as far as to say that outside the Cubs and Reds, like those other 3 teams smell. Like the Brewers, Pirates, Cardinals, they smell. It just, especially like, I'm surprised the Brewers are 500. No offense, Terry. I know they're kind of your team, but it just.
No, I picked the Reds.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I thought you were.
I like the
fan.
Brewers. I mean, I do like them and I root for them, but I don't know. I thought they overperformed last year, and I think we're seeing it this year.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how I feel. It's like I don't, their frontline starter is Peralta. That's fine, but not much beyond that. Their lineup leaves a lot to be desired. Pirates and Cardinals aren't there yet. It's going to be between the Reds and Cubs. And the Reds, I have high hopes for just because I like a lot of their young talent. I like that front end of their rotation with Green and Lodolo and Rhett Lauder. Like that looks really good. Bullpen's okay, but the Cubs just feel like they feel more ready. They've got more professional hitters. They've a little more veteran presence there. losing Justin Steele really hurts. I'm curious to see how aggressive they are at the deadline, if it's still a tight race in the division and the Reds start to nip on their heels a little bit, if they decide to go get aggressive to go get a starter, it might be worth their while. But I think this is the Cubs division. I think the Reds are just going to fall a little bit short. I love Francona. I think he's a great manager. There's a lot of talent on that team, but they have some holes. They still have some parts missing. It just yeah, like first base, they got this kid Encarnacion Strand who, they're hoping is going to be the next guy, but he keeps getting hurt and he's inconsistent and they really don't have a backup plan. So I feel like their lineup is going to be what really kills them for the Reds. They're going to be relying on Ellie to do a lot of damage, and it's not going to be enough. Whereas the Cubs, I feel like have a much more balanced lineup. So I like the Cubs' balanced lineup. I think that they can add another arm at the deadline. Their bullpen's pretty solid. They've got a good manager there. So I think it's the Cubs division. I think the Reds will be close. They might even sneak in, get a wild card, but I think the Cubs end up with the Central for sure. So with that, we'll move to our last one, probably the most interesting division in all of baseball. Well, apart from one team, but that is the National League West, which right now is a pretty tight race. Your San Diego Padres are on top at 17-8. Giants right behind them at 17-9, half game back. The Dodgers 16-9, 1 game back. And the Arizona Diamondbacks 2.5 games back at 14-10. And dishonorable mention, the worst team in baseball, the Colorado Rockies at 4-20 are in last place. So, Nick, how do you feel about the NL West? Who do you think ultimately ends up with it?
I think the Dodgers still end up with it. I'm surprised the Padres are playing as well as they are. I still think they'll be a good team. I don't think they'll win 107, 8 games like they're on pace for. But eventually these teams are going to have to play each other, and one of them is going to have to lose. I don't think the Giants are that good of a team, but every single time they do this, I say they're not good, and they end up winning 100 games. So you never know with them. If I had to pick right now, put them in order, I'd probably still go with what I picked in the preseason, which was the Dodgers, then the Diamondbacks, then the Padres, then the Giants. The Rockies might end up being worse than the White Sox were last year at this point. We don't know yet, but I still pick the Dodgers. I think the Padres will make the playoffs now. I didn't pick them in my preseason, but now I think they're probably a lock. I don't think they win the division, but they'll make the playoffs. So Dodgers, Padres, and we'll see if the Diamondbacks do. If I had to reseed how I pick the playoffs, I'd take the Braves out, probably put the Padres in.
Terry, how do you feel about the West?
Well, the Padres are leading the division right now, and ironically, I gave them my third wild card, and it was between them and the Cubs, and they're the two teams crushing it right now. So, the Dodgers started out 8-0. It was an annoying start. They, looked like they was going to kind of run away with it there, but in the 17 games since that 8-0 start, they're 1 game under 500 in that stretch. I suspect they probably will win the division, but stranger things have happened, and I hope strange things do happen. I hope things kind of get away from them a little bit. I hope there's a lot of panic, and I hope they don't react well to it. Blake Snell, a couple of you picked him to win Cy Young. I respected the pick. I thought it was ballsy, but his injury history just kind of, that's why I couldn't have done it. But he looks like he could miss a while. I mean, he's just been shut down again in his rehab due to a shoulder problem. So we'll see. But last I checked, Roki Sasaki pitching pretty well. Yamamoto pitching extremely well. So we'll see. But I'm rooting for the meltdown. I I don't like what the Dodgers have done. I do think teams need to spend more in general, but I don't want to see them do it that way. I don't think that's good for baseball, quite frankly. So I hope it all comes crashing down, but gun to my head, I'll say the Padres won't sustain it, but and the Dodgers will probably get back in it. So
Yeah, it pains me to say I think the Dodgers will still end up winning the division. I agree with you. I think they're bad for baseball, the way they've been operating. I would love nothing more than to see them melt down and completely crash and burn, but they just have too much talent for that to happen. And like you said, Sasaki has kind of figured himself out. He's settled in. Yamamoto is healthy. He's pitching well. The only thing I can possibly think of that might derail them is that at some point, Shohei's going to want to start pitching again. And I wonder if he has a setback or it doesn't go well and it screws him up at the plate because he is their best player. Like, I don't know. I do worry about that a little bit for him and them, but knowing them, he'll come back and pitch. And his first outing, he'll go 8 innings and strike out 12 people, and he'll be fine. So that's just the way that things go for the Dodgers. I don't know if this can last for the Padres, and they're a team that's interesting to me because they've been trying to compete with the Dodgers for so long, and they've made bold moves. They've basically sacrificed their farm system to try and do it, and you know I don't know if it's going to work. Like, if it doesn't work, do they still trade Dylan Cease at the deadline, or do they hang on to him? Like, they're kind of in a weird purgatory of they have to convince their fan base like we're good enough to compete by the deadline, or else if they don't trade Dylan Cease, I mean, I don't know what his contract situation is. He's probably still under contract, but he's a highly sought after pitcher. Like, they might get a king's ransom for him, and if they drop to third in the standings and they're not in a wild card spot, that's going to be a tough position for them to figure out. They're banking on Tatis and Machado kind of leading them. I feel like San Diego has not managed things very well the last couple of years. They've been so desperate to compete with LA. They've just made some really desperate trades. I think they're going to drop out. I still think Arizona is going to rise up and they're going to be the true competitor to the Dodgers. I don't think they'll win the division. I think they'll finish second. I still think Arizona goes in as a wild card team. But watch out for Arizona. I feel like they'll be the ones that they'll just kind of stay healthy. They'll make the right moves at the deadline. They're not going to do anything splashy, but they'll do just enough. And I still think it's Arizona, LA in the NLCS. And I still think Arizona beats them. I really do. I said it on our preseason show. I got Arizona going to the World Series, and I still hold to that. So it'll be LA's division to win. I think they'll still win it, but I think Arizona is going to rise up here. They've gotten up to a bit of a slow start, but they've also won 7 of the last 10 now, and they're going to rise up. They're going to be close, maybe not take the division, but they're going to be LA's true competitor. So Dodgers will win the division, but it's Arizona. That's the team you got to worry about. So any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
I don't know how the Giants are so good. I mean, Landon Roop, 4.91 ERA, Robbie Ray, 4.07, Jordan Hicks, 6.59, Justin Verlander, 5.47. They must be doing it with the bats
and they're not. They don't have good players, and they just win games. Yeah. I don't get it. They do this like once every 5 years. It's random. They don't have a great roster. Willy Adames hasn't been good. Their big acquisition hasn't
terrible signing.
It's just I don't know how they're got that many wins. It makes no sense. So
they got like one hot 2-week streak from Yastrzemski, and that kind of carried their offense.
I know Jung-Hoo Lee had a few games against the Yankees where he went off, but he hasn't been great either. I mean, he's been better than he was last year when he missed the whole year, but he's not a great player.
Well, like you guys said, Could be the Diamondbacks. I mean, I think they're built better than the Padres are. Padres have a great lineup, but I just think the Diamondbacks are more well balanced, and the Dodgers are who they are. So
Yeah. Well, either way, it's going to be interesting, especially in the National League. I feel like we kind of highlighted those. Those are going to be some interesting divisions to watch. So, hey, we're only a month in, and it's already pretty exciting. So, lots of baseball left. We'll be with you the entire way. So, everyone, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.